Sudan, a land of stunning natural beauty, with a rich cultural heritage and diverse population. But the Arabian Neva, located in Northeast Africa, found itself in the middle of chaos. It has been in a state of war for decades. This country has been torn apart by conflict, with military leaders vying for power. Sudan was a land of hope and possibility, but as the country struggled to find its way in a rapidly changing world, military leaders seized power and began to shape the nation according to their own interests. The results were catastrophic. The military leaders who took control of Sudan were ruthless and brutal. They saw themselves as the guardian of the nation, but in reality, they were only interested in preserving their own power and wealth. The war in Sudan has had a devastating impact on the country's people, economy, and infrastructure. This is the story of Sudan and its military leaders who are destroying the country and the price that its people have paid. It's a story of hope and resilience, but also of tragedy and loss. For many decades, Sudan had been in a state of war, and yet the country was struggling for many years to set up a democracy after being ruled by one man for 30 years. Omar Albashir came to power in a military coup in 1989. This man will go on to rule Sudan for the next 30 years until he was overthrown in 2019. But Sudan is now experiencing an all-out battle for control. The army and a paramilitary unit known as the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, led by former allies, are fighting each other. People are caught in the middle, with hundreds of lives lost and injured, and the capital Khartoum heavily damaged. Despite international calls for a ceasefire, the fighting continues. But here's the question that we all need to answer: what's behind this fighting? And most importantly, why is Sudan now in a very deep chaos? And what are the implications for Sudan and the rest of the world? The ongoing struggle for power in Sudan is between the army under General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who is currently the head of the state, and the Rapid Support Forces known as the RSF under General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, widely known as Hameti. As with the country's democracy in the balance, after the army agreed to share power with different political groups in a transitional government, the army seized power again, leading to ongoing talks to make the transition to democracy happen. However, underlying tensions and rivalries between the army and the RSF have held up the process, with the RSF becoming more powerful. The RSF, originally known as the Janjaweed, were created to protect the upper echelon of the military and senior commanders, and were accused of carrying out war crimes in Darfur, leading to al-Bashir being charged with genocide. In 2013, the militia was rebranded as the RSF, and in 2019, Hameti and General al-Burhan joined up to oust al-Bashir. The RSF and the army were accused of killing over 100 people during the pro-democracy protest, with the RSF acting independently and growing even more powerful. The tensions between the army and the RSF began when talks of integrating the RSF into the army could not agree on a timeline, with the army proposing 2 years while the RSF wanted to be 10. The army had been making a stand against the growing power of the RSF, and tensions over who was the top dog were growing. The fighting began with accusations of attacks on each other's bases, leading to both sides fighting to take control of important sites such as the presidential palace, the airport, and the state TV channel. The army has air power and has been hitting RSF bases in the capital, while the RSF has an anti-aircraft weapons and has about 100,000 men. The international community has called for a ceasefire, but there is no sign that either side wants to back down. Sudan's neighbor, such as Egypt, which has been a close ally of the Sudanese army, and the UAE, which has ties to the RSF, could potentially have leverage to end the fighting. Sudan is a country caught in a limbo, with no clear path or trajectory to transition to democracy. The ongoing battle for power between the army and the RSF has led to hundreds of lives lost and the country's infrastructure damaged. As the fighting continues, The people of Sudan are scared of what's gonna happen to them after all. A lot of people in Sudan are frustrated while their country keeps getting drilled up that fast toward democracy. The implication for Sudan and the rest of the world remain unclear, and the dream of building a democratic state in Sudan is a hope that seems even more distant now.